Do you know you do not need to hold these threads when you start to sew? Raise your hand if you've done that for all your sewing years. You put the presser foot down and you hold these threads and you step on the foot control. So for me, I do not do that. But here is why I can get away with not holding those when I start a new seam. So here's what it is. If you're working on any sewing machine, literally any sewing machine. Now, this one is mechanical, so when it stops at the end of your last seam, this needle will stop at any location. It could be in the fabric, it could be down, it could be partially up. What you have to do is finish the last stitch, and that means that when you bring your needle all the way out of the fabric, so you're going to turn this by hand, you're looking for this to be at the highest position. So see how it's above the housing of the machine? When this is at the highest position, that means that it is at the very beginning of the next stitch. So part of it is that I've physically completed the last stitch, and when I put my presser foot down, now I usually like my threads to be underneath the foot and kind of towards the back, or even out here anywhere from 10 o'clock to 9 o'clock. It can be out to the side, but the foot is holding those threads. It's not that it's holding those threads, it just means that it's not going to pull on these threads trying to finish the last stitch. So just watch. Those threads didn't move one bit when I stopped. So let's just say I'm at the end of my seam, and I'm going to try to stop. Oh, of course, I stop right at the end here. So let's just stop there. It's not bad. This one's still at the top, but my needle's about ready to go in the fabric. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to just finish that stitch, bring the needle all the way up, and then bring the take-up lever to the top, then pull out my fabric, cut my threads, and watch. I'm not even going to touch them. I'm going to lower the presser foot and then go ahead and sew. That's how easy it is. What happens is, and why people think they have to hold their threads, is when you bring your needle up and you think it's out of the fabric, there's no take-up lever here. So if I pull it out and cut my threads, the last thing it's going to do, or on the next seam, the first thing it's going to do is it's going to still try to finish that stitch. And that's when the thread comes pulling out of the needle, and that's where the habit came from, where people were holding onto these threads, eliminating that thread coming out of the needle when they started to sew. So if you just finish your stitch before you take your fabric out, you don't have to hold your threads next time you sew. Easy peasy, get in that good habit, bring this to the highest position before you take your fabric out, and it'll also probably solve 80% of your sewing problems every time you sit down to sew.